I love that exercise too. It really forces you to do only the most impactful tasks. Like you can only do the most impactful things. You have 5 hours total to focus on it.
Yeah, and honestly, like I've tried a product before and it failed like really, really bad. I tried a skincare line and like fuck, it did not go well. Pumped a bunch of money and like it just never took off. It was what it was.
Yeah, yeah,
This one's this one's a little bit different, a little bit more niche, and I think it serves an area that's untapped. So we'll see.
awesome.
Cool, man. So what I'm going to do, so the format of this, I kind of have like a 30-minute presentation on it. So walking through how basically I've taken my business, particularly through COVID, which was hit very hard,
Yeah,
and how I've like rebuilt not only my lead funnel and actually made a bunch of revenue in the last couple months, but also just like started building up my network in like a really impactful way. So I'm going to go through the presentation. At the end of it, I kind of open it up to Q&A. And because it's just you and me, like, we'll just get like super specific because this method is going to work incredibly well for you.
good. Okay.
So like, yeah, so like pick my brain and definitely take advantage of the solo.
Yeah, man. I got my pen and notebook ready to go, man. I'm taking notes.
Awesome. So what I will do is I will send you a copy of the deck.
Awesome.
And I also send you a copy of the recording. So
Very.
if there's some stuff that you don't pick up along the way, don't worry about it.
It's helpful.
And in addition, there are 2 training videos because there's 2 tools that I use for A, sourcing people, and B, outreach. And so I have separate videos, training videos for those because it would just be a 15-minute waste of time to do it on this. So
Okay.
I have those as separate assets that I'll send as part of the package.
Okay.
Cool, man. Let's get into it. All right. You can see my screen all right?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. So there's a handful of things that we're going to be covering today. Some of this is going to be base knowledge. You're a guy who's had experience in sales, and so some of the people that join the workshop not as equipped, not as used to it, but we talk about why building relationships is so important for sales. I think it's sometimes very obvious, but often overlooked, and I'll tell you a little bit about my experience with it and why I think it's relevant to bring it up. Then kind of the 2 ways that I'm generating leads. I think one of them is going to be more relevant than the other for you. How to establish your target audience, how to get in touch with them. And then the biggest thing, the most important thing, because anybody can source an email, anybody can find somebody online on LinkedIn, but how do you really wow them and make them want to actually jump on a sales call right from the get-go, which is kind of how I moved from before. I was like more running ads, driving them through a bit of a funnel. This process is actually just getting me like right onto sales calls with people, and it's been just awesome. So obviously, if you can do this in a really, really time effective way, it is a very cost effective way as well, but you can spend more time creating an awesome customer experience. So especially for, the solopreneur, which is something that you're kind of moving towards as we talked about in our previous conversation. One thing you don't want to get bogged down in is like a million different little nuanced things that waste your time when you could be delivering impact, right? And that's always the challenge of the solopreneur, because you wear all the hats and you're like, okay, but I have to do the invoicing and the follow-ups and this and this and this. And so for me, it's like, what tools exist, what processes exist that cut as much of that out as possible so that I don't have to be bogged down with it, especially if you're not like a great administrator like me. I'm very like scattered, I'm a creative. And so every time I have to do it, it takes me way more time to like stop, go through the agonizing process of all these little things that I'm not good at. So for me, this is kind of my story. So I had a training product. It was an advertising training product. It was targeting kind of small to mid-sized companies who were tired of working with big agencies and not knowing what was going on. And they're like, I think we could do this in-house. It took me about 18 months to develop the product. I did a bunch of tests. I sold it for super cheap at first. And then all of a sudden I got like, I had like 5 or 6 months of just like constant 25 leads, 25 leads, 25 leads. We were spending like $500 on ads a month. That was it. And we were selling 40,000 a month in training. And this was like super high margin. It was like $4,000 a pop, took 5.5 hours to execute. It was like the perfect product. And we were, we really built that up and we were on pace to like crush. Soon as COVID hit, I have not had a sale. That now I think is 8 months instead of 7 months. Like I haven't had one sale of this product. I've had 4 leads. None of them were legit. And like, it was pretty ugly for us from that standpoint to go to 40K a month to 0. And then we also had some ongoing clients and 5 of them paused. And so basically give or take 65, 70% of our revenue, like just died in 2 weeks, which is never fun. And, you spend a couple of weeks agonizing over, is there a way to fix it? Could anything have been done differently? And most of the time the answer is no. But anyway, so that was kind of back in March and April. And so what I started doing is I started sending these video messages, which we're going to talk about. It's a really interesting process. And I started building some targeted partnerships. And so basically I've been able, this is just the last 3 months, not including December, because I made this deck in November, but I did quite a decent amount of business in September, October, November, about 135K in new business coming in. And it was literally just all from this process.
Awesome.
So before we get started, a couple things that we're gonna not systematically tackle, but just top line things. So there's a lot of beliefs in the industry. There's a lot of online courses. There's a lot of people talking about this is the only way to do it. You have to run Facebook ads. You have to go to a lead magnet. You have to do all these things. And the truth is, like, there's no set way. The reason I added this in is when COVID started, I actually offered 50 hours of free consulting for people to pivot. I fulfilled about 36 hours of it in 30-minute call increments. And like one of the biggest things, like the most common thing I heard from people was, oh, well, I can't do that because this is how this industry works, or this is how this typically works. And I think people see the blueprint from somebody else and they get stuck in this like, well, but this is just how it's done. And that's super, super, super dangerous, because I know a lot of those people that I consulted with who could have made the shift probably stayed in that mindset around, no, but I think this is the way it has to be done, and probably went out of business because they didn't just start making stuff up and see what worked, which I think is really important. The process is really, really simple. This is not like big, deep funnel. It's literally just like building awesome human connections with the right people at the right time. And seeing if they want to do work with you. And then this is like literally the entire process from end to end for me. I've been on enough webinars, and I don't know if you've experienced the same, where you're like, oh, cool, I'm going to learn how to do this thing. And then you get to the end and you're like, oh, but like buy this course or come into this program, and then you'll learn the last piece. And you're like, wait, no, I thought we were doing that today. So just as a preemptive, like I'm not leaving anything out. This is end to end everything that I've done. Cool. So there's typically a breakout room, which we're not going to do because it's just you and me. But what I think would be relevant is how do you currently generate leads now? I mean, I know you're kind of, you've got your foot half in corporate and you're kind of half on the other side. So how are you generating leads for you?
So I've been using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and then I actually found this tool online. It's called Magic Sales Bot, where you like enter a company's website and it pulls out like the decision makers. Essentially, they're still testing it and making improvements, but it's pretty effective. But primarily my business is coming from people I know and just leveraging networks.
Yeah, and so but from the lead gen side, because I love word of mouth. But at a certain point, if you decide to go to another level, it's like, is there enough word of mouth for that to be?
No, exactly. Right? That's the problem. And even like the word of mouth is not it's not connecting me with the types of companies I want to work with. Like I feel like where I'm really going to have the impact is customer service and sales organizations and developing their people managers. And right now I'm working with solo entrepreneurs on, you know what I mean? And it's awesome because it's like that side of the business is growing, but it's not the type of leads that I'm most passionate about. Or if I think of where I want my business to be in 2 years, 5 years, it's not necessarily getting me there.
Yeah. And so Sales Navigator makes all the contacts connect, and that's in here because I think it's just such an incredible tool.
Awesome.
We're grabbing emails, and then what's the path from there? Are you doing a drip sequence? Are you putting them into Facebook and targeting them with how are you rolling that out?
That's pretty much it. Interacting with content that they put on either Instagram or LinkedIn, and yeah, sending emails. Just after like a couple interactions in a public, I'll slide into the private messages and then look at scheduling a phone call.
Got it. And do you do it as like a drip, or do you do all hand-to-hand combat, like one-on-one customizing of your message?
Yeah, it's 1-to-1.
Awesome. That's what I love to hear. I think a lot of people get stuck in this, oh, but I have to contact tens of thousands of people. And I'm like, and that's true. It can work. But like with the amount of automated messages I get, especially as a founder, and I'll talk about that, it's like, there's a way to break through it. And I think you're like, it's great. You're like right at the front door of it. And what we're going to talk about today is going to be, I think is going to be a big, big game changer. So I'm excited.
Awesome.
All right. So step one, so there's 3 steps: finding your people, reaching them, and then having them decide that they're going to get on a call with you. So finding your people, right now, which is where I'm seeing the brunt of it, is in 2020, there's a ton of businesses, like $96 billion worth of revenue or business gets done in B2B trade shows. I found that out through this Forbes thing. There's been over 12,000 trade shows canceled this year alone. Offices are starting to close down. So not a lot of come into the office, let's do a sales meeting. I mean, golf is still okay, but yeah, exactly. So, and then we're seeing like MailChimp, SendGrid, Klaviyo, everybody's reporting that the volume of emails going through their platforms is significantly increasing. And I see that because I have my title as founder on LinkedIn, on the website. My contact information is readily available. And I've noticed my amount of people outreaching to me every week is dramatically increasing, like 2.5 times increasing. And I think a lot of people are going to either some online course or some person who's like, hey, prompt them with this, connect with them, then drip out the sequence, ask them to rate something, ask them to respond to something. And I get, it's funny because you can see like where those schools of people come in from. In fact, on YouTube right now, somebody created a course that is how to grow your agency from 0 to 8 figures in 18 months. And I know that course is doing $1 million or $2 million in sales because every YouTube ad I get is the same person saying, hey, do you want to go to 0 to 8 figures in 18 months? And I'm like, what is this 18-month thing about? It's enough to drive you crazy. But I think the point of all that is the generic way that the masses are doing it, especially as a decision maker. If you're in that target market for like a lot of people want me to make their decisions, for me, it's like accounting, SaaS tools, bookkeeping service, management consulting. Like I get everything from everybody. And when you see that same technique coming from every different industry, you're like, oh my God, someone just made millions of dollars on their course because everyone's using that method.
Yeah.
So that kind of speaks to the relationship thing. And I think you're really far along in this process. So that's great. But for me, again, it's like, I get so many general contacts, even ones that look like it's a bit of a personalized outreach. And then I got an automated LinkedIn message on Christmas Day, and I reply to them and then I screenshot them and I blast them because it's just fun. But I had one that was like, hey, Mike, thanks for da-da-da-da-da. How would you rate your current bookkeeping for your business on a scale of 1 to 5? And I was like, this is noon on Christmas Day. Like, you didn't even think to turn that shit off? Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's brutal. My response rate is almost 0. I've responded to 2 cold outreaches in the last year and a half. I gave both of them a shot because they literally spent the time. The guy was like, dude, love your Instagram profile. Your climbing pictures look really cool. I don't know if you need this right now, but I'm a copywriter. And I was like, you know what? He was like a $300 test. So it was such a small investment. I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'll give it a shot. Like, let's go. But it was because he took the time and like actually looked at the website, not like, hey, I came across your website, came across your LinkedIn page. And then they don't reference anything. I just came across it. And what? What does that mean? And for me, it's more of an irritation than it is anything else. And it becomes, I have an assistant who goes through all my emails. So I don't deal with them as much. She does, but like, I know they're flying in. And at this point for me, there's like 50 to 100 a week between LinkedIn and email. Like it's a lot of people reaching out. And I think the thing that I take away from that is like, if I know how I feel getting them, what is the person on the other end feeling? It's not good. It's irritation. And like, so say you blast out to 1,000 people and you get one yes. One person's like, you know what? I'll take that meeting with you. They're coming in irritated. Like you're in an uphill battle to make that sale because they're like, yeah, well, I kind of just happen to need it at this point. I guess I'll talk to you. I'm not excited to talk to you. It's just like, you might be a viable option. So I guess I will, but like, it's always an uphill battle from a sales perspective that way. Also, a couple other things, again, as a founder, as somebody who has had to implement different things when I changed my accountant, when I changed my project management software, like working with new people is a headache. Do they have any idea what they're doing? Are they going to be able to do what they said they're going to do? How much integration? How much do I have to create an SOP within my team or my existing vendors or my existing software? Like it's such a nightmare bringing on anything new. Whether it's a SaaS product, whether it's a vendor, it's like, okay, but you don't know to get a hold of the accountant or this guy or that, or my US guy to deal with any of these things. So now I got to like train this person and hope that they know what they're doing. And I've been through 4 accountants in 7.5 years. So I've been through a lot of like bad experience. The way I kind of think about this is like, as the decision maker, I think about all the reasons I would say no. It's too much work. It's not, like I'm going to have to reinvent the way we do this inside of our office. I'm going to have to train my team. It's going to take too much time to set up. And if you kind of list every reason why they would object and every reason why that person would say no to you and your service ahead of time, you're maybe not putting it at the forefront of your content, but it's going to go a long way in them feeling like you understand them. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. So there's 2 methods, hyper-targeted direct, which is like I've looked up the decision maker, I'm contacting them, I'm going to try and get a deal from them. And then there's creating partnerships. Now the creating partnerships thing doesn't work for everybody because there might not be the right network or the right ecosystem to make it work. From my marketing side of my business, it became very, very easy. And I'll kind of go through like how the 2 of them would work. So hyper targeted is, I know I've built out my target audience. I made a list of, what industry they're in, what job they hold. I go on my sales navigator, as you mentioned, which is just an incredible tool to like narrow it down to the exact person you want to speak to. And I reach out. When I think of partnerships, the way I think about it is like this. I don't want people to be outsourcing to me. So if I'm doing marketing, I don't want a marketing agency outsourcing marketing to me because they have their ways that they do things. They have their methodologies, they have their SOPs, they have their promises that they give to their clients that you don't have anything to do with. And it's like, okay, you're kind of at the mercy of what they think is good. The way I think about it is, who out there has a complimentary service or a complimentary offer or an audience that would actually make sense, that I'm not taking anything away from them. They don't feel like they're conceding their clients or losing their audience. Maybe it's something that enhances it. So as a marketing agency, you go to a web development company or a PR company who doesn't offer a digital marketing thing and say, hey, you could get your clients more entrenched with you if you were offering this thing as well. Why don't you send that out to me? I'll do it under your umbrella. And so that's how I always do. I never compete. I always compliment. And that's a really interesting way to create partnership. So kind of thinking like taking a step back and saying, you know, who already has my target audience as a yes? Who has signed them as clients? And it could be obscure too, right? Like it could be somebody in accounting, and you're like, hey, who in your firm is an existing client that, owns this type of business or is in this type of industry? Like, do you have anybody? And if they do, and they can refer them out, whether, you do some kind of a kickback, or, you try and send them clients, however you structure it. But we've made, we just actually signed Volvo Trucks, like the trucking division for Volvo in
Yeah.
Canada.
You told me that.
And that was a partnership. That was a company who's like, we don't do digital, we do, enterprise level technology. And I'm like, oh, why don't you let me into your client list? I can help you make more money. You take 20% of my fee. But then it's a great opportunity for everyone. They were like, oh, total win-win, like all over it. So things like that can be really powerful. So something to think about for sure.
Yeah.
So the direct one is, obviously being extremely specific. I'm not a big, creating the full audience persona. Are they married? Do they have kids? It's sometimes relevant. I kind of stick to the bare bones when it comes to that. Like, especially if it's already going to be niche. I try and just figure out like, what is the type of business? What is the size of the business? Who is the decision maker? What's their job title? That's usually a good place to start. But you always want to make sure that you're targeting people that make the decisions, or if you can't get a hold of them, one person below who will have a direct influence on the decision maker. I've seen a lot of deals work really, really well, where the person below has to be a part of solving the problem for the person above. You give them a small fix or a small solution to your bigger issue that they can take up the ladder and say, oh, ooh, that solved, step 1 and 3 of 1 through 10 that we're having a problem with. Who is this guy? Can he solve, 4 to 10 now? So, even if you solve a micro problem for someone below the main decision maker, that might be an introduction to the next person up, especially if they're behind a gatekeeper, they're really hard to get a hold of, they're making decisions as part of a pool of people. That's where it can become a little bit convoluted.
What do you look for?
What's that?
What do you look for to determine if this is the decision maker or not?
I usually will reach out to people underneath them and do the like, hey, I'm not sure if you're the person to speak with kind of conversations. So there's a couple things that work well with that conversation. The person below isn't the gatekeeper for the person above, right? They're like, oh, you offer this thing, we need this thing, this is the guy to talk to. So if it's not their assistant or their executive assistant, like that's the gatekeeper style thing. So if you're talking to, VP or director and above who may have a gatekeeper, I go to the direct reports below them and say, hey, I'm looking to reach this person. This is the, problem we're solving, and less of a pitch, more of like almost as if you've already kind of started that conversation with the person without saying like, oh, we've already talked. Hey, yeah. We're just, I was reaching back out to get in touch with this person. Is that the person, or are you the person? No. So I always start with, are you the person? When they say no, say not who is it. I always start with, could you do me a huge favor? Always ask them for a favor. And the favor is not necessarily the intro, but just the direction of like, hey, can you do me a huge favor? Who is it? I forgot who it was that I'm supposed to reach out to. Oh, it's Tony. He's the guy that's in charge of that thing. And then that person push it, like, at least if they're not connecting you, they're giving you the detail of who that exact person is. So okay. I find go to one level below, even just call 4 or 5 of them or reach out on LinkedIn and then ask them for a favor. And all your favor is point me to who that person is. And that's really impactful. But if you leave the favor part out, you'll get a lot more resistance. You'll get people that will be a little bit more hesitate.
Okay, thank you.
And then so then biggest thing is to make them feel understood. So this kind of goes back to a couple things ago. If you know all their objections to you and your service and your product, by doing that, you're also expanding out into, what are the pain points within this person's role? What are they responsible for? If X, Y, and Z goes wrong, are they directly blamed? Is their job at risk? If X, Y, and Z goes well, do they get credit? Do they get a raise? Like, try and identify as much of that stuff as possible. So while you're talking to them, you're talking less about what your service is and more about validating or verifying, hey, have you had this experience? Well, how does that work on your end? Oh, well, it stresses me out because every time I lose an employee, it costs us this much. It takes us forever to hire again. I understand full well the cost of losing an employee. And if I dip below my base team, then projects start to go, and then I start losing sleep. Now, they're not going to tell you this. This is something you want to kind of draft out ahead of time, but like, think about not only the direct work implications of something going wrong, but what are their personal things, right? Is it stress?
The emotion, right?
The emotion, does it make them a shittier parent or a shittier husband? Are they on edge? When they're on edge, does it make people in their family act a certain way? And then it kind of spirals into like a crappy household. Like, there's no reason why, something going wrong at work should make you a crappier parent at home. And you're not saying that that's what they're going to do, but you want to try and pull that, out of them. Now, I have a whole other thing on like the discovery calls and like how to pull that out properly. It's a bit too big for this conversation, but I think just the key is like, understand their pain points, understand what makes them tick, and then ask them questions that like pull the information out of them. Hey, I understand you're responsible for this. Like, what happens if that doesn't work? What happens if somebody leaves in 2 months? They just quit. Oh, well, it's a bit of a red X. It's a bit of a red X under my name. I have to go into this frenzy of hiring process where I have to involve a ton of different people because I have to get HR to do this. I got to get someone to write the job description. I got to get approval on the budget to run the ads for the job description. And like, you can feel them getting worked up at the idea of having to hire again or find another agency or have their clients' performance of their ads be poor. All these, there's always that like deeper thing. And the more you can just be quiet and let them explain it and ask them, how does that impact you? You don't want to say like, how does that make you feel? It's a little bit too personal, but like, so what are the implications of that? What does that look like on your end? Oh, well, the next month is hell. I got to do this and this and this. Wow. So keeping people on board or making sure your ROIs are met for your advertising customers is like, it's super important, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Okay, great. And so you're pulling this information out of them. But the key is just making them feel understood and not telling them how they feel, letting them tell you and then validating it and saying, oh, it sounds like and you're really just kind of giving them that information back to them.
Awesome.
So partnerships, I won't go too far because we talked about it, but so it's a complementary service that does not compete with you, that you can come up with something that's mutually beneficial. Think outside the box with this. A lot of people say, well, nobody wants to lose their customers to me, but like, it could be totally out in left field. And the way I model this is like how small businesses do it. Like, my dentist puts her business cards at the gym down the street because they don't care if someone needs dental work. Like, but it doesn't have to be it doesn't even have to be fully complementary. Like, local could be the bridge, right? Mm-hmm. So thinking like a small business in that context of like, who would part happily with a couple of their clients, and not even parting because you're not taking them away from paying them. You're just finding a way to bring them over to you. So it's a fun exercise trying to thinking about how you can partner, who you could partner with. And then these are a couple bullets. Again, I'm going to send you this deck, but like, when I'm thinking about who the person is, if I'm doing direct outreach, kind of like, here's kind of the core things. So this is the left side is basically everything you're going to find in Sales Manager or LinkedIn Sales Navigator, sorry. The right side is a little bit more of that, make them feel understood, right? So jot out some bullet points on the right hand side ones. What you want to do is like talk about the practical answers, but then take it at least one layer deeper. Well, what does that do for like their stress level? Um, does it, if this is going wrong, and it's a direct relation to someone working there, like, do they end up treating that person more poorly just because like that person is their point of stress? Like kind of diving into those things. But these ones you can kind of dive into that extra layer of how does it impact them.
So this is an exercise to do kind of before like even sending an email out. So you kind of create this avatar that you're speaking to and you're communicating. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, this is all about kind of who is this person, what makes them tick. So that way, whether you're hinting towards it or whether you're asking them, you want to kind of have like with these bullet points, what I tend to do is for each one, I'll write 3 points for each one. And then I'll write 2 to 3 implications or 2 to 3 impacts for each of those things. So you should end up with a list of like 30 or 40 things. That almost becomes your client communication Bible. By the time you've done that on all the positives and all the negatives, especially pertaining to like how your service, affects them, that becomes every objection that they have, every pain point, every stressor. And you may have conversations where more stuff comes up, but like if you do that and end up with those 40 to 50 points, you will seldom find some other reason or some other motivation that somebody would say yes or say no, or ways to talk to that person. You're going to come up with a lot of ammunition for marketing and communication language, proposals, like it's all going to be on that document.
Yeah, that's great.
And that's just a quote that I heard years ago. And I just, it's true. It's so true. And most people in sales don't think about it as much. They just want to be like, my product will do this and it's going to help this, it's going to help that. But it's like, if you don't know some of the core stuff and their motivators, your benefits don't mean anything to them unless they connect it with how it's going to impact and benefit them specifically. And this is like a big thing on like sales pages. Most sales pages are just, here's a bunch of benefits of my stuff. And it's like, okay, that's fine. If I already know what the problems are, or they're already surface level, or I'm already aware, I might read that and be good. But if it's a level below the surface and I'm not sure, like making me be like, oh, yeah, I do feel this way. This does drive me nuts. Oh, you understand it? Like that really brings them to wanting to pay more attention to what you have to offer.
That's great. Yeah, same with leadership, right? Just influence, both sales and leadership. I love it.
Yep. So the second section is a little bit shorter, obviously. This is just, and again, there's 2 training videos. You know how to use Sales Nav, so that's a nice check mark off. But basically, LinkedIn Sales Navigator and LinkedIn Helper. So LinkedIn Sales Navigator is, just for the purpose of the fact that I'm recording, is basically a tool that allows you to use all of those parameters that we saw in the audience profile, and identify who exactly fits into them. So it can be, it can be company size, it can be the relationship they are to you on LinkedIn, it can be their seniority level, their job title, what college they went to, what level of seniority they are in a business, how long they've been there, industry, job title. It's incredible. There's so much power and so much ability to narrow down to your perfect person inside of Sales Navigator. It's a great tool. Here's some of the things that you can target in Sales Navigator. The video before was obviously a live version of it, but these are some of the things, and these will typically match up with the profile or the identifier that you're going to draft out of who this person is ahead of time. LinkedIn Helper, on the other hand, is a tool that sits in behind the scenes and allows you to scale actions. So it's basically a bridge. It can do a lot of different things. I primarily use it for one thing and one thing only. When I have a big list of people I need to connect with on LinkedIn, I don't want to do it step by step. So what LinkedIn Helper does is you take your list that you've built in Sales Navigator, you dump it into LinkedIn Helper and say, hey, go make a connection with all of these people. I don't want to do it manually. I just want this to work for me. So it can do a couple things. If you've got a list in Sales Navigator, it can actually pull that list out into a spreadsheet for you, which Sales Navigator cannot do, which is great. So it pulls it out into a spreadsheet with like every different piece of contact information that you would want. What I use it for is I use it for sending automated requests. Now, the way it works, because LinkedIn doesn't like plugins and tools. So what it does is it goes through every single person on your list. It clicks their profile. It scrolls down. It scrolls partway back up. It clicks on a couple of links, like clicks on the job title that you're at, clicks on a post that you've made. And it like goes, then it goes back to the profile, it goes down a little bit further, clicks on something else, comes back. Then, and only then, it clicks connect with this person with a note. And then it uses this like typing language. So it's like, so it's a pre-made message. But what it does is it types it as if it were, and it makes mistakes and it goes back, and it's all done by a machine. So LinkedIn can't detect that it's actually a tool because it looks like you're, oh, I misspelled that. I got to go back. So that's a really cool thing to do. I don't use it beyond this from the standpoint of like, you can use it to send like drip sequences and drip messages out, which I don't do. The only other thing I'll occasionally use it for is if I want to send a mass message out to people that I'm already connected with about something I'm working on, or maybe a workshop that I'm doing, I can choose all the same parameters that I did in Sales Navigator. So I want all the people that are first connections to me, who are all these things, I want to send them a DM. I generally don't do it till like we've been connected for a while, and I generally just don't do it. But that's the only other function I would use. All of these dripped out automated sequences, I'm not a big fan of, so I don't use it for that. So this is a cool tool to build connections at scale, send out invitations, and get people connected on your page.
Very cool. Yeah, I didn't know about that. I'm looking into it.
Yeah, it's very affordable. I think it's like a couple bucks, like $3 to $5 a month or $7 a month. And you can use, like, if you're doing a specific campaign, you can just get it for a month, do everything you need to do, and then just like get rid of it and bring it back later. It's a really good, really great tool. So I have a training video on how to use this as well.
Awesome.
All right. So now we've built the bridge, we've built the connection, we've either got their email, or we're connected with them on LinkedIn, or we're following them on Instagram, engaging with their content. The way that I have been able to skip the back and forth and just go straight to sales meeting is not by doing this. So these are the ones I blast out. So this guy was like, hey, do you want to own a barber franchise? This is the first message I got from him. Like, are you kidding me? Like, come on. You know, I get these guys, came across your LinkedIn as I was checking Social Media House. Do you want to build apps with us? I'm like, there's nothing on my page that talks about apps. I'm not a technology company. What are you talking to me for? So, and I have like these between LinkedIn and here, I'm averaging right now about 75 a week.
It's awesome.
Which is an insane amount, and it's
yeah.
very frustrating.
Yeah.
So this is how I'm switching up the game. I'm sending video. So it sounds daunting, and it's like, oh, what do you mean you're sending video to each person? But we'll talk about how to systematically do it and the impact that I'm getting. So I am, and I've got like the script of how I do the outreach, but I'm actually sending videos to people, and it has changed the way I do outreach and the way I generate leads literally forever. So I have I have a huge collection of screenshots of people who I was reaching out to. So I sent a video, and they're like, you know, great for sending the video. I'd love more information. Very innovative. I haven't seen this. I'd love to know more. Like the amount of, so my response rate on this stuff is crazy high. It's crazy positive, and it has a whole bunch of supplementary impacts, which I think is like, to me, is the game changer. So when I send connection requests, those are all automated. I send a note saying, hey, I'm connecting with people in this industry. I'd love to chat with you. I get about a 60% response to my invitation to connect on LinkedIn. I get 75% response rate on my video. So almost every video, I mean, that's a crazy amount that are at least sending something back. And then so if the service makes sense for them, 70% of them are going straight to like a discovery call with me right from that.
Yeah.
The crazy thing is, and like the hidden unlock is, if they're like, hey, this actually isn't a great fit for me, they feel, because I've taken the effort to send them this video, they feel like they already know me and there's like a built-in trust. So I'm actually asking for a direct referral right from the, hey, you know, this isn't quite the right fit for me, or we're, you know, our company's not down that path, or we're not, you know, we're not doing that. I'm like, hey, do you know anybody else that this might be a good fit for? And I'm having people connect, like DM me and some other person, be like, hey, you should talk to this guy, Mike, literally from the rejection of the sales call. Like,
wow.
It's nuts. And it's like, you don't even have to do, here's the crazy part is, you don't even have to do research into like their website. Cause I'm not saying I looked you up, I did this, I did that. It's literally dropping their name in the first line and then basically kind of going through a couple of prompts. And they're just like, I can't believe that you sent me this video. I'm blown away. And it has so much built-in trust. It is crazy.
Awesome.
So I'll go through the script, but so this came up. I did a personal direct training with a client of mine on how to do this, and she had never done outreach before in her life. Super afraid to do it. So this came out the day before I put out the workshop. So I was like, okay, I made the list. Go video DM. So this is what she said. First video got a response. Positive. I'm like, cool. It's gonna keep happening. So like, just keep it up. And she goes, I don't even know how to reply. I'm like, tell him that you want to talk to him about your service. So she sent 20 video messages. I was like, just do 20 a week, 20 video messages every week. So her first 20, she got almost everybody responded, and she booked 3 sales meetings in 1 week.
Wow.
And 2 of them were like, hey, actually, it's not exactly right for my customers, but I actually know like a bunch of people I should connect you with because they would actually use your service. And so she's already gotten, she signed her first contract within like 15 days of starting this process. It's
so cool.
Been amazing. So then like, let's dive into a little bit more of the practicality, right? So how do we get there? So we got to connect with them. We got to send them a video, and then we're going to ask them to go to the next step. We're not going to demand it like other people. And I don't know if you've seen a lot of, hey, hey, what day works best for you? You know, next Tuesday or Thursday. I fucking hate it. I hate it. Because if I'm a busy guy, I do not need you being, preemptive about don't try and book me in. I actually purposely make myself very hard to get to because I have an assistant. I'm just like, I don't know, talk to her. She's like, do you want to talk to this person? I'm like, no. She's like, no, it's not a great fit right now. Like I have this great buffer of like, I don't even have to say no. It's awesome. So connecting is, so I do it through the automated thing. Keep it really light. You don't want to, what a lot of people do in their initial request to connect on LinkedIn is they try and explain who they are. They try and pitch something. They try and go down this rabbit hole to validate or justify why they're reaching out. I just say, hi, I like connecting with, people in the space that I'm in, the industry that I'm in. I'd love to connect with you. Not saw your profile, you look great, checked out your website, nothing, not one thing. And I get 60% response on, hey, hey, love connecting with people in this space. If you're open to it, would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. They're like, cool, no problem. Now, don't ask beyond the connection. All you're asking for here is, will you connect with me? And don't pretend that you've done anything that you haven't. If you've scaled through a couple of their pieces of content or posts, sure, that's a whole other level. I don't think you need to do that. I think the amount of bandwidth and time that can be wasted doing that research just to connect doesn't make sense because you don't know if they're valid. And I think the second part, the video part, actually eliminates all that need. So I just feel like it's a big time commitment to like go through their Instagram or go here, go there. I don't do it because this works so well. Yeah. And the biggest thing is just be friendly, just ask, keep it super, super, super simple. And people will generally respond. Now, the thing is, I know when I respond to those, I'm expecting the second I click yes for there to be an automated message starting a sales sequence. And when that happens, I just remove the connection and I depart conversation. Like I don't ever communicate with them. So the fun part is when they're like, okay, this seems like I'm going to get pitched now, and they don't, it's like, because that's the expectation, especially if you're, again, targeting decision makers specifically, they're going to be expecting it.
Okay.
So here's how I do the video. You can only do video, and this can be done on multiple platforms. You can do this on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. You can do it through Loom if you want to send it via email. A lot of the apps have it built in. So LinkedIn has a video tool built right into the app on your phone. So it makes it really, really easy to do. You can only send them a video once they've connected. So there's no, I'd love to be able to send it the first line of communication, a video saying, hi, can we connect? Doesn't work that way. You have to build that connection with them. And so within the app, you can right through the message, when you go into message tab on your LinkedIn app, there's a plus sign and then there's a little video camera. And you can just go right through there. And it works the same way everywhere. I think it depends on who your audience is, where they spend their time, you know, professional services, professional people, usually on LinkedIn, you know, artists and podcasters. I find them mostly on Instagram, but I use the exact same method.
Okay.
And then here's my format. And I actually, on the live one last time, I actually played a video of a video that I actually had sent, because everyone's like, oh, okay, like, do I gotta, you know, have a tripod and have a light, and does it have to be this like super professional thing? And the answer is no. So here's how I do it. I just say hi. I thank them for connecting. One really important thing is I disarm their skepticism. In whatever context you find that to be, I usually say, hey, look, I know people like us get a ton of these automated drip out campaigns, and it's enough to drive you crazy. Like, you're not going to get that with me. That's not who I am. Like, that's not what this is. I like to add that in just so it's like that feeling of you understand me, right? That's like the first part of you feel like making them feel understood. Yeah, I do get a lot of these messages. They drive me crazy. And then they send 5 of them until I go nuts or I block them. So I like to disarm the skepticism right there. And then what I do is I tell them what I do. I keep it brief. I try and keep it to like 20 seconds. So that elevator pitch, that true, I can tell you everything about what I do in 20 seconds is really important here, because you do not want to drone on and start explaining it and start justifying it. You want to say it in a way that they can understand or have a pretty good gist in 20 seconds that leaves them saying, oh, but does that mean, because you want them to leave with a question, because what you'd ideally like is that, oh, well, how does that work? Or how do you do that? Oh, great question. So you want them to do it. So you want it to be descriptive without over explaining. And then you want to tell them why you think that what you do applies to them. Not, we can help you, you're going to get this is the benefit. You say, you know, from what I can tell, it seems like something like this would actually be really something that might be really applicable to you, and then ask for the meeting. So we're never telling them that they need it. We're saying that that's our assumption. What happens with the assumption is one of a couple things. They either confirm and they're like, oh yeah, actually that would be interesting and beneficial. And then when you ask for the meeting, if they've confirmed it, they're probably going to say yes to a discovery call, which is awesome. If you say, I think, and they say no, say, oh, no problem at all. You know not to follow up and bother them, A. But the other thing is, because they've thought about it and processed and given you an answer, it then preempts you to be able to say, hey, do you know anybody else that, you know, this would be a good fit for? You know, is it another division of the company? Do you know another company? Do you have anyone in your network that you think this would be a good fit for? And I leverage that follow-up consistently. And the amount of people who just like, because again, there's this shock of like, this person took a time to send me this video, that they're actually willing to hand you a referral right off that first piece of conversation. I didn't do that for the first bunch of them. And I was like, and then one person actually asked me, they're like, oh, they're like, oh, but like my friend, he owns a business and I think he might want to talk to you. I was like, oh, would you send us a connection, like a bridged meet, like a whatever you'd call it, like you send him and me a message in the same conversation and say that we should chat. And he was like, oh, this super nice guy, Mike, like he does this. I think you guys would like work well together. And like he basically handed it off as if I had done a great job for him and that he was highly recommending me to someone else. And all I did was have 1 minute and 40-second long conversation with them. So the impact of that is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And it will start working right from the beginning.
Awesome.
So this is kind of my example. If you're a website developer and you're targeting a digital marketing company, for example, so like complimentary service, if your website performs better, the digital marketing works better. So this is kind of a match made in heaven. So, hey, Mike, thanks for connecting. Sure, you get a ton of automated messages. I just wanted to stand out. So that's like the disarm. I know that you guys offer whatever service. I'm looking to partner up with people that create, great websites for their clients. I thought it might be a good fit for you and your clients. I thought it might be, I'm great. And then the little extra. So the feeling understood is I'm great at fitting under existing brands. So you're actually saying like, I've private labeled before and I can like integrate into your company perfectly and make it seem like it's you guys. And so it's not like you're outsourcing work, which I know is something that will be beneficial to them. If that's something you're interested in, I'd love to have a chat. That message should be about 1 minute to 1 minute and 30 seconds at the most. And that will get a massive amount of people to reach out and say either, hey, thank you so much. That was so cool. It's not for us. Or like, actually, that might be something interesting for us. I would love to have that conversation with you.
Okay.
Again, I'll send these slides so you've got them as well. And then I guess just the importance of ask. This is more for people that have not been in sales, who are intimidated by asking. And I think one of the keys to sales, which a lot of people leave out, is like, all you're doing in sales is asking. And so people feel like, well, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to ask them. I want them to come to me and know what they want. Like that doesn't happen. That's not real life. That's all sales is you aligning with people that might make sense to work with and you asking them for their money. And if you don't think about it that way, I know it's an intimidating thought to consider it that way, but if you don't think about it that way, you're never going to get to the point. You're never going to ask. But the other side of that is also is not demanding, right? So asking for one thing at a time is a really important thing. I think a lot of people I see them in my cold outreach. I got one last week that had three questions and one call to action in the same email. How's business going through COVID? Have you ever heard of like this style of like marketing strategy? I have this checklist. Do you want me to send it to you? Like, click here to book a meeting. And I was like, I don't even know what you want me to do, man. Like, it was so out there. And it's surprising that it happens, but like, these people don't know you. They don't owe you any of their time. They don't owe you any of their attention. And to be frank, you haven't earned it. And so for me, it's like, ask if they'll connect with you. Ask if they think this is a good idea or they think it applies to them. If yes, ask them if they want to have a deeper conversation about it, or, if you guys can get on a call and ask them some more questions. And if you keep your call to actions straightforward, streamlined, simple, and always ask, if you leave the option in their hands, they're going to feel the power of it, because nobody likes being told what to do, right? That's universal. They like to feel like they have the decision-making power. So I'm always asking what they think, and asking if they think it's a good idea, asking if they want to do it. And when you do that, they can make that decision for themselves. And if your product or your service is in alignment with something they actually need, more often than not, the answer will be yes. But it is about the cycle of ask instead of tell. That's it. And honestly, like, that's it. It's build human interactions. Like, these people that you're going to do business with, like, you're going to get to know them like deeply. Like, if I'm doing marketing for someone, or if I'm becoming their consultant or their coach, like, I'm going to, after they sign up, like, I'm going to know all the dirty details. They're going to have to trust me. They're going to want to, like, if I'm not the guy that they want to go golfing with or have a beer with, like, the relationship is kind of doomed from the start. So it's better to like get that out there, get that knowledge. And honestly, like the one thing I like about videos is like we all have this inherent, and it's not right, but we have this inherent judgment. You know, you ever listen to a podcast or you ever hear someone's voice, you're like, I just don't, their voice bothers me. I don't like that person. You're like, well, why don't you like the person? I don't know. I just don't. So one cool thing is when you're sending these videos, if that's that person's reaction to you, then you don't find out because you're sending emails. They're like, oh, this all sounds good. It lets them know who you are personally and a little bit of a personality thing ahead of time. So if like they don't connect with your personality, then you're not, 3 steps in spending an hour into a sales call and them being like, yeah, I just don't feel like it's the right fit. And it was because they didn't like your voice or your approach or your thought process on something. I'd rather them know that ahead of time so I don't get down that channel and find out after wasting an hour and a half of my time. That's kind of another benefit of doing the video thing.
No, I love it, man. This is a great idea. I've been doing these on Instagram. I'm not sure why I never thought on LinkedIn. But that's where I find the people that I want to work with.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, that's great. I love the outline too of your template that you use for making the videos. So I can see why that would be super effective. I know if I got that, I would definitely jump on the call with somebody.
And I'll show you a video because a lot of people are like, okay, but like, how many takes? How many times did you do it? Like if I screw up in the first sentence, I will retake.
Yeah.
If I don't, if I get through the first 2 sentences and then I like stumble, like I just keep going, man. I'm fine with it.
I think you'll appreciate that too, right? Where like this person's not coming across like they're perfect.
Right.
That lose you the error message.
No, I got it. I got you back. So yeah, and so as a recap, so defining who you want to talk to, and that it doesn't have to be like this is your set in stone target market forever. This could be your target market for a campaign. I'm going to reach out to 100 people like this to like see how it goes. It doesn't have to be like this is the framework for the whole business. Thinking about what matters to them, what's important to them, using tools obviously to streamline that outreach, and then making sure, I don't know if you use a CRM now, but making sure that you have a CRM so you can track when you should follow up with people and stuff like that. If you don't have one, I do have a free one that I built on Airtable, and I can send you a copy and you can use it for free. It's really,
I just using like a spreadsheet. So that'll be,
Airtable is like a spreadsheet on steroids. It's really amazing. And it has automation, so it can like ping you to let you know like when to follow up with somebody. So I'll send you my template because it's a really easy to follow one. And it's all in the free version of Airtable. You don't have to pay for it.
Cool.
Being friendly, I think is just, it sounds obvious, but I think when sales, like we get worked up and we get like nervous and it comes across as like, I find taking that step back and making sure you're remembering to like be personable and be friendly is important, wowing them with their outreach and then asking for your meeting instead of demanding. Always that way. So I'll open it up. I'm gonna while I'm listening, I'm gonna find an example. I'll show you one of the videos just because it's like, it's interesting to see, but do you have any questions, like, and get greedy with it, be like super specific to yourself?
Yeah, thinking through like the LinkedIn, your profile page, how much thought and like what are the what strategies do you have there? When people click on your bio, they're seeing what you want them to see.
Yeah, so I think there's a pretty good format where it's like, impact statement right in your impact statement right in the first detail, where I'm just actually finishing up my lead magnet, which is a mini course version of this. So like it's like a self-serve 25-minute course where it's like got a worksheet to it. And so that will be that's going to be in one of the first lines of my bio and my description. Like, hey, are you in this niche? Go get your, want to learn how to generate awesome leads and like wow your prospects. Like, here's this free course. Cause I think that's it. And especially if you're reaching out at scale, And I've been doing a lot of, like, I'm up to like 7,800 followers, maybe like 5,000 connections. I actually switched my LinkedIn profile from connect to follow as the default option. So people by default follow.
Okay.
I like that better, just because, like, if they're not engaging, I'd rather them be a follower than a connection, because that can actually hurt your organic content distribution if you have a bunch of followers that, or a bunch of connections that don't take part of your content.
Interesting.
So that's kind of something, but you got to get them off of these platforms and move them to where you're going to own the conversation. And to me, that the only answer is email. Even having a following on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, it doesn't mean anything. And when they pull the plug on organic reach, like Facebook did, and decide, hey, pay for everything now, everything's going to be an ad. If you don't have them on an email list, it's going to become harder and harder. And honestly, the way I think about my email list is like, I want people to leave. If you join and this isn't for you, like,
Yeah.
unsubscribe, go away.
Right. Yeah.
I want people that are in it to be real prospects that I actually have a good chance of getting. And so get them off of social as soon as possible. And a lead magnet is the easy way to do it. Like, I'm thinking about it like this. So I might make this workshop more expensive and push everybody to the free online course, the 25-minute micro course, and then say, hey, do you want to like do this live and get some real feedback? Like, then come and do the $150 workshop. And then from there, do you want to work directly with me to help? Like, I'll help you build this stuff out, position your product the right way, make sure it's priced the right way, make sure your marketing materials like hitting, make sure your sales process is tight and you're actually closing 50-60% of your sales calls. Like, that's my big picture that I'm working with.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not for everybody, right? So it's like, oh, maybe they just come in, they get the lead from the workshop. Maybe they refer people into it, but I don't want them in my email list if they're not going to, like, I'd rather them be like, this content's really specific and like, it doesn't affect me, I'm going to leave. I'd rather them just go away. So this is the one, this is for Mark Snyderman on the right here. So this is a Facebook group. This particular message was a Facebook group I launched, which was like, hey, I'm trying to steal people from LinkedIn and teach them about personal branding and creating content on Facebook. Do you want to come and join this group? So this is the video. It was only 34 seconds, but.
Hey, Mark. Yeah, man, thanks for connecting. I like to send a personalized video message to everybody I connect with on LinkedIn. I feel like it builds a bit of a more real connection. Guys like us in our respective industries, but our industries nonetheless get a lot of automated outreach and people that want to book demo calls that we've never spoken with before and trying to get us to sign up to services that we don't want. And, it can be a little frustrating. So anyway, I just like to put a bit of a personal touch to my outreach. So hello, thanks again for connecting. I hope you're doing well.
And so that one actually didn't have an ask. Oh, there was like a conversation that went after that. So some of the other ones, I'm like, the reason I'm reaching out is because I've created. So, but you can see, like, I was still living in Mexico, and he is an attorney for, like, I think he's a pretty big deal. He's got a pretty good following, and that was it. Like, I just did it in my tank top. Like, that was just me, right? And I sometimes it takes me longer to get it out of my mouth, but the key is, like, I've sold, $50,000 marketing contracts from those.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be super fancy. It really can just be, holy smokes, like, that guy spent that minute and a half, that 34 seconds, that minute and 12 to, like, really engage with me and talk to me like I'm a human. And so again, like, if there's any chance, if I've targeted it right, and there's any chance they want to, like, potentially do business, I get a great foot in the door. By the time I'm in a discovery call or a sales call with them, they already feel like we're best friends. Like, and so the benefit of that too is, like, you cut out the people that don't like you or think about whatever. But then the other side is, like, they're so much more receptive to this sales call already because they feel like they know you a bit. They feel like there's that built-in trust. So my sales closing rate on meetings to this is, like, amazing. It's absolutely crazy.
I love it, man. Thanks for doing this. This is super helpful. It's definitely helped me connect a lot of dots, and I'm definitely not somebody that's scared to get on video. So I'm gonna probably like 20 a week sounds like a manageable goal for sure. And I'm even thinking of people that I have calls scheduled for beginning of the year, sending them a quick video message, just wishing them a happy new year this week to kind of establish some of that trust and help them, just show that I'm doing things a little bit different to find ways to personalize it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then